Good morning, guys. Michael Blaine with Shadow Company Investigations here. So, tried making this video a minute ago. Of course, got canked because of people knocking on doors and calling and all kinds of other distractions in life and business. So, and in the universe. Basically, my claim to fame is my background. I've been investigating 30 years, basically 20 years in law enforcement, retired, having a global investigations company for the last decade, which has been successful. Started it with basically hardly any money, hardly any to zero business or marketing or sales training, and have been very successful with all of this. I just want to make a video to touch on something to really help out any company that's recruiting. And this video just happens to specifically kind of surround law enforcement and the shortage of officers, the fact that people are just wising up to not go into law enforcement these days, especially police work on the patrol level. And what prompted me to make the video is that I was contacted by a nationally recognized law enforcement agency, and their recruiter wanted to talk to me about me applying there. So this is where it gets interesting. So I was basically conveying to them that I had always been involved in all the, I like doing the interdiction, the SWATs, the raids, the sniper training, the SWAT training, active shooter stuff, all of that stuff. I just loved it. I could never get enough of it. And even when I retired from law enforcement, was training in all of the tactical and all of the gung-ho stuff for years from a bunch of special forces guys that, train private citizens in law enforcement and military. So I've always had this in my blood. I've had law enforcement in my blood, and it's just who I am. So, and those of you who have that bug or that curse or that blessing, whatever it is, you know what I'm saying. So I'm talking to this recruiter, and who's a high up, in the command staff level. And I just quickly knew that I was like, to cut to the chase, he's telling me that, from hearing me, some things I'm saying may not be a good fit. And on the flip side, everything I was hearing and what he was saying was not even remotely a good deal, is what I would just call it from a business perspective. It was not even remotely a good deal. Not a good deal for me or anyone else, really. With any common sense logic, any business perspective 101 speaking, when you're talking the conditions, the pay, the benefits, $50,000 a year to lay it on the line, and you're telling a guy that is basically been there and done that, isn't the real deal, and you're going to tell him that, well, you've been away for X amount of years, you'd have to go through a year-long academy, start over as a rookie, ride with the training officer, put in your time, prove yourself, all this BS. And it's like, I'm sitting here going, so you need guys, the industry or law enforcement, public sector is hurting big time for guys, and for qualified guys, and for guys with no criminal record. But you're a recruiter, and it's your job to bring in talent, cutting edge people, and grow and improve your city and your department. But you're going to tell the guys they're not qualified, and they need to start over, basically kind of submitting and saying, I don't know anything. I am going to start completely over on every aspect, instead of coming in and going to some fast track or lateral, straight up, moving in, showing up. But the thing is, you're not new. It doesn't make any sense from any aspect. I don't care what anyone says or comments on the video, because I have done this my whole life, and it makes no sense. You wouldn't take a Navy SEAL, bring him over to Blackwater, and send him to basic pistol training for a year. I mean, that doesn't, they don't do that, but that's because they're smart. And that's because they obviously have some business and common sense. Recruiting and training, whatever. I know some other companies, there's different types of companies, there's different industries. But my point is, it makes no sense. When law enforcement hasn't changed in 100 years of doing anything, some of the training, some of the philosophies, apparently the recruiting part, I mean, they're selling themselves when they're recruiting, right? They have to sell the department to you. They have to sell the city that you're going to be living into you. This picking up and moving across the country, you have to offer someone something. You have to have some type of pay or incentives or something to make this a good deal. And some minimal training I had once from Mercedes, yes, the vehicle, the car, company, is that, there is no such thing as a good deal in life. It is what you perceive, what feels like it's different from person to person. So what is a good deal to me at this point, being a business guy, being a successful private investigator, being a successful business guy? What is a good deal to me? Sure, it is going to be different than a kid who's 21 who just wants to be a cop and just is naive and dumb and young and doesn't know anything. And that was me when I started. But, of course, if I could go back and do everything over, of course, I'd probably have some second thoughts on going the public sector, maybe even to begin with. If I had this private investigations company for the last 30 years, instead of having put in 20 years in public sector and law enforcement, well, I would be loaded, first off, financially speaking. It's not even comparable. When you're making quadruple what you can make as a patrolman, and you're in charge and you're not having the, going to go to federal prison for shooting someone scenario, doing your job, working 12-hour shifts, working shift work, it's just the most thankless thing there is. Society doesn't back you. The police department, when all the dice falls, the music stops, they're not going to back you, regardless of what they say. No one's ever going to back you. So, and it's you left defending yourself. So I guess my advice is to any company or law enforcement that's recruiting anyone, have something to offer. For God's sakes, have something to bring to the table. Instead of telling them you don't know anything and you're going to start from below the basic level. When you're a guy who has hundreds of thousands of hours of investigation, training, education, experience, and you want to put guys on the road who are 21 years old, who are green, and the only reason they go home alive, let's be honest, I was that guy at once, is because you're lucky. It's not because of any bullshit police academy training. That training we used in the academy, very little of that training really transferred over to being on the road as a patrolman. It pretty much went out the window. The college degree thing, total fucking joke. It had zero impact on anything I did as a police officer, or even in the academy. So every level you go to, every place you go to work for, whatever you're doing, everybody always says you don't know anything. You need to start from scratch. We don't know how to think outside of the box. We apologize. You just got to go through all these little steps, and you have to come in and say that you're an idiot and that you don't know anything. And my thing is, if someone is not an idiot and they actually know a lot, then how are you going to recruit? Recruiting, it just doesn't, it blows my mind. You get the gist. Please leave any questions, comments, concerns. I would love to hear any input, and especially from guys like myself that have been around for a while. And, I see now why these police departments, on the recruiting aspects, it's suffering bad. If it's going on like this, and this is a nationally recognized department I spoke with, and it's again, because everybody's the same, humans are the same, the departments are the same, because they have zero ability to think outside of the box. That's what I see now getting away from law enforcement, and looking back, 30 years later, I still see the police car parked at the bank, no one in it, backed in, it's there for 6 months to deter a bank robber. Give me a fucking break. Everyone and anyone and every 5-year-old kid in kindergarten knows there's no cop there. Guys, come on. Let's get a little smarter, guys.